So you really believe if Donald Trump wins again, there's all kinds of mayhem, and he is doing everything he can, not just to settle scores, but to turn himself as closely as he can into Putin?
Yes. Why would I not believe that? Every bit of evidence we have, public and private, suggests that is his plan.
Because the institutions are too strong, and the rest of because the institutions are too strong, and because the
institutions are a joke in this
government
country.
are too strong.
Which institutions? Is this the Supreme Court that's now running down the clock on his behalf so that he never faces a single federal trial before the next election, which in any other country would be laughed at?
If you believe the future depends on protecting democracy from those who dismantle it brick by brick, hit that subscribe button now. This channel is building the strongest community for truth and accountability online, and we need you in it. Don't just watch politics unfold. Help shape the conversation. Subscribe, and let's get to work. May 2024. Biden's still president. The election feels like it could go either way. And on Chris Cuomo's show, Mehdi Hasan sits down to debate the one question that should have already been answered. Is Donald Trump an authoritarian threat, or are we all just overreacting? Here's what makes this conversation so haunting. Now, it's not just a debate, it's a time capsule, a record of what we were warned about and what too many people refused to believe. Mehdi Hasan made predictions. Chris Cuomo pushed back, played the skeptic, leaned into the let's not be alarmists position that felt so reasonable at the time. And now we know who saw it.
One of the sticks I've been beaten with recently is that I underestimate dangerously the dangerousness of Donald Trump. My suggestion is pretty simple. I'm not going to argue that he doesn't say what he says. I'm going to argue that it doesn't mean what it would if you said it. Because this man is a lie machine, and a hyperbole machine. And you have to look at it that way, that the idea that he's a man of great vision and strategy who wants to become an autocrat and is going to put people around him who can help him overthrow America's democracy, I think is a laughably absurd notion. And the more the left insists on it, the more it makes people think who are in the center, right, that small group, that you guys are exaggerating the problem because you don't have better ideas.
So a couple of things. I'll engage in the substance of what you said in a moment, but let me just question your premise that this is a left critique. I know, Chris, I get it where you're coming from. You have this kind of stick, like you're in the center, there's a right and there's a left, and you're above the fray. That, first of all, that's not true. But where does this left come from? Some of the most eloquent, passionate, and most informed critics of Donald Trump's fascism and assault on democracy are not leftists.
It's true.
Judge Michael Luttig is not a leftist. Liz Cheney, last time I checked, is not a leftist.
True.
George Conway is not a leftist.
True.
All of the former Trump administration officials who've said the man's crazy, he's an authoritarian.
General John Kelly.
Leftists, right? So they're not leftists. I don't accept the premise that this is a leftist critique, not at all. In fact, there are people on the left who attack people like me and say you're being hyperbolic and agree with the premise of your statement. So it's not a left thing. Let's just put that to one side. In terms of the substance, number one, let me snarkily say this. Chris, did you think Donald Trump would incite an insurrection and refuse to leave office in 2019, in 2020?
No, but I also wouldn't characterize the behavior the way you did.
You don't think he incited an insurrection?
No, I don't think it was an insurrection. I think it was a riot.
Okay, did you, I don't agree with that for a second, but let's park that for a moment. Did you in 2019 or 2020 say Donald Trump will refuse to leave office and incite a riot and an attack on the Capitol?
No.
I did. In 2019, I wrote a piece for The Intercept saying Donald Trump is very clear about the fact that he won't accept the election result and he won't leave, and people are ignoring this danger. And if this, you know what's going to happen? Violence and rioting. I wrote this in The Intercept in, I think, May of 2019, about 18 months before the election. People said to me, you don't know what you're talking about. You're a brick. You don't understand American politics. The Secret Service will walk him out. There's no danger here. This is all hyperbole. So my first point, Chris, is forgive me when I hear people say it's hyperbole. I was right then and they were wrong. So maybe we should have a little bit of humility from the folks who say, calm down. A lot of the calm down folks were completely wrong on January the 6th, 2021. That's my first point. And then in terms of the substance, I mean, he is saying this stuff. I agree with you, Chris. He's a liar. He's an exaggerator. I completely agree. He's not a strategist. I don't think you need to be a strategist to be an autocrat, right? I don't think you need that. I think you have autocratic tendencies and instincts, And then it's an issue of whether those around you and the
But they usually
institutions-
have a plan, Mehdi, as we both know.
Well, he's got people around him. Have you read the Heritage Foundation 2025 report? It's a pretty clear plan for authoritarianism. Pretty well laid out over multiple pages. But just go back to Trump. Okay, when I say, so a friend of mine said recently, a friend of mine who doesn't want to vote for Biden because of Gaza. So I can't vote for Biden. I said, well, what happens when Trump's president? And they said, well, we'll protest Trump just like we protested him the first time.
But how do you vote for Trump if you don't like Biden's position on Gaza?
No, they didn't say they would vote for him. They said, well, we'll vote for Biden, but they don't care if Trump wins. They're so mad at Biden.
I got you.
They don't care if Trump wins. And I said, well, what are you going to do once Trump's president? You're Muslim, you're going to suffer. We'll protest. We protested the first time. I said, what happens when he puts the military on the streets and they open fire on protesters? Oh, Mehdi, you're being exaggerating. That's too far. Mark Esper, Chris, a man you know better than I do, just went on MSNBC last week and said, he told me to shoot protesters. I said, we can't do it. Mark Esper won't be there next time. Next time it'll be Kash Patel or General Michael Flynn who'll say, sure, boss, whatever you want. So when you tell me like it's hyperbole exaggeration, it's not. He's already said it. He already gave the order to shoot people. We just got lucky first time around that there were a few half-spined conservatives in his administration who said, no, they won't be there next time, Chris. It'll be Michael Davis. It'll be Michael Flynn. It'll be Kash Patel. It'll be Sebastian Gorka, who will love it.
So you really believe if Donald Trump wins again, there's all kinds of mayhem, and he is doing everything he can, not just to settle scores, but to turn himself as closely as he can into Putin?
Yes. Why would I not believe that? Every bit of evidence we have, public and private, suggests that is his plan.
Because the institutions are too strong. And the rest of because the institutions are too strong, and because the
institutions are a joke
branches
in
of
this
government
country.
are too strong.
Which institutions? Is this the Supreme Court that's now running down the clock on his behalf so that he never faces a single federal trial before the next election, which in any other country would be laughed at? Chris, let me just bring you the immigrant perspective here. The rest of the world thinks we are a joke when it comes to our institutions. In Brazil, Bolsonaro didn't incite an insurrection. He simply questioned the results. The Brazilian judges banned him from running for president again until 2030. We have judges in this country who, by the way, are appointed by the president. Absurd system. No other country does it this way. They have independent judges, not party-nominated judges. Our judges, 3 of whom were appointed by Trump, are now running down the clock on his behalf, this ludicrous decision to hear his immunity case at their own slow pace. So no, I don't believe the institution is strong. I believe we dodged it in January of 2021 by the skin of our teeth, by people like Raffensperger happening to be in the right place at the right time, by the Supreme Court in that moment realizing that none of the 60 cases, including the Pennsylvania case, were worth hearing. Next time around, it's a different ballgame. You've seen the Republican Party, what they've been up to in recent years. They've purged any of those folks from 2020. Raffensperger, thankfully, did just get reelected in Georgia. They weren't able to get rid of him. But in other places in Michigan, they've carried out purges. And this time round, they're much better to take on our institutions. Which institution? The House? Chris, the Republican Party in Congress is a Trump party. You know this.
Mm-hmm. It has been to date. There are different ways to look at it. It's certainly as a matter of degree. How so? Well, when you listen to General Kelly, now, do I wish he had been saying these things while he was chief of staff? Absolutely. But even with a pretty weak, Esper, I would put at the stronger scale of this, although he made the decision to work for Trump. He had that good explanation of, I knew this guy was going to have to need good people around him because, all right, I'll give it to him. But that could break either way. Out of conscience, you could also say, no, I won't work with this guy, and let me tell you why. But that with a pretty weak lineup around him, there was a lot of pushback. And the theory from even John Kelly is the stronger people are around him, if you had regular people who were around other White Houses that he had interfaced with, they would have been a much bigger check. So even with these weak people were telling him no all the time, and he listened to them because as long as it's good for him somehow at the end of the day, he goes along with it. He doesn't have what most people who want you to shoot at protesters have in their heads about why. And that for him, it's really that he wants to win. He wants to stall these lawsuits. And it's basically the end of it.
Here's where we agree, is that the one saving grace we have with Trump as the autocrat in waiting is that he doesn't have an underlying ideology of any kind. He's not Orban, Putin, Erdogan, MBS, Modi in that shape or form.
He wants to be liked.
Right? He wants to, he wants to save his save his ass right now, right? In terms of the legal
And be
situation.
liked.
He pointed at.
He wants to be liked, Mehdi. If you were to go on TV tonight and
he's
say,
not running a campaign. He's not running a campaign that implies he wants to be liked at all. He's running a base campaign. He wants to be liked by his base. He's given up on any kind of. In 2016, he was reaching out to independents, trying to pretend to be anti-establishment candidate workers. Not now.
But
he's not even trying.
But Mehdi, he has a pathology involved in his behavior.
Yes.
I can use that word with you that
Yes.
most politicians don't. He is an actual amoral agent. As somebody who has studied philosophy for 35 years
He's
of my
also
life.
a malignant narcissist. And you mentioned pathology, Chris. Here's another, sorry to do another kind of I told you so moment. Back in 2018-19, Dr. Bandy Lee of Yale put out a book called The Dangerous Case of Donald Trump. A bunch of psychiatrists analyzed him from different angles. I pushed that book heavily. I had her on my podcast at The Intercept. I went and spoke at a conference she organized. People said to me, this is crazy. This is the left gone over the cliff, like trying to psychoanalyze the president. This violates all sorts of medical rules. Guess what? John Kelly, who you just mentioned, he bought the book. The guy in the White House who was chief of staff was using the book as a guide to his boss.
Look, I do think it's weird for clinicians to want to analyze somebody that they haven't met.
It is weird, but it's a unique, we live in a case of lots of unprecedented moments thanks to Trump.
And he's a pretty obvious narcissist.
On the yes man and the no man.
Yes.
I'm not denying that there were people who said no around it. They didn't say no enough, like you just pointed out. They didn't resign and say their piece at the time. And by the way, even with those adults in the room, he still almost started a nuclear war with North Korea. He still almost started a war with Iran. He still kidnapped children at the border. He still praised neo-Nazis in Charlottesville. He still allowed 500,000 Americans to die who probably many of them didn't need to die from COVID. So even with that, he was a disastrous, perhaps the most disastrous president of our in modern American history. I'm saying next time around, Chris, there aren't going to be those people. He is coming back with vengeance. 4 years is a long time. He's not the same Trump as term one. He is going to come back much angrier, much more organized, and surrounded by way more yes men and open fascists like the Bannons of this world than he did last time around. I'll give you an example, Chris, just one example. Mike Davis, who Don Jr. is touting as future AG or future senior figure in the administration, conservative lawyer, used to be a Bush guy, gone full MAGA. This guy is on Twitter saying, I'm going to deport Mehdi Hasan to Guantanamo Bay, right? Now, he doesn't have the power to do that even as Attorney General. But those are the kind of people that he and his people want to bring into the administration. It is not Jeff Sessions. As bad as Jeff Sessions was, he was still a conventional conservative.
I understand. I understand the concern. I don't believe it. And now you could say, well, you're being delusional. I don't think so. I just think that I'm being swayed by my very long time knowledge of him.
So what do you think is going to happen, Chris? I've laid out my vision. What do you think is going to happen from 24?
Well, first of all, I'm not
25
sure.
onwards, he's president.
I'm not sure that he wins.
No, let's assume he wins. What does he do?
So if he wins, one, does the left create any dynamic like the one we had after the last election? I don't know. Not that it would be baseless, but is Donald Trump, are the people around him capable of rigging? 100%. They're capable of it. So what if we get real proof that he rigged the election and that's why he won? I think he's much more likely to rig an election than it is likely that it would be rigged against him. So
Agreed.
I got to see what happens with that. Then if he wins, I believe that is so much of what the satisfaction was for him that he may coast from silly media fight to media fight, and he will do a lot of saber rattling against us. I think that will be his main focus because the Democrats will all fall in line like every out party does.
Unfortunately. What do you think? So two questions then. What do you think happens to all these freaks around him, the heritage folks, the ideologues, the Bannons? Do you think they just
he has
you don't think they have you don't think they have real clear plans on the social liberal culture wars front?
He is not a heritage front? He's not a Heritage Foundation guy.
But they're the ones who are going to be. They're the ones pushing.
They are pushing
whatever kind of agenda
things.
You want to call.
They were very effective with the
civil
judges.
Servants.
Yes, deep state stuff, as they call it, which I don't believe in. By the way, bureaucracies definitely have their entrenched issues, but I don't believe in what is called deep state. I believe it's a false negative.
But it's projection, right, Chris? They want it to be a deep state that they can then weaponize. The stuff they say about Biden runs the FBI, Biden has nothing to do with the FBI. That's what Trump wants. We know that. You and I both know he would love to have an FBI.
Right. I think that's a little bit too clever for them. I think
go after his opponent. You don't think Donald Trump wants to have an IRS chief and an FBI chief who go after his enemies?
I think that he absolutely likes the idea of power so he can abuse it. I think we have every bit of evidence.
So that's my question to you, Chris. Where are the abuses of power that you are worried about? You're saying you think I'm behind, but what you must be concerned about some abuses of power under Trump. What are they?
I guess that I have been reserving judgment because I don't think he's going to win. He could win.
Okay.
He could win. And the polling now
50-50.
has been bad
50-50.
longer than I expected it to be. Okay.
Agreed.
But I did not expect a non-campaign from the sitting president either. And I did not expect him to not take any action on the border when it clearly has become the dominant domestic issue. I did not
he has
expect
tried
that.
to take action, not action I agree with, but the Republicans screwed him for political reasons.
They screwed him on that Senate bill. Yes, and we know it because they said it out loud. All right, which to me would have been the biggest shock in recent history. To hear that out loud that way, I've never heard that before. Second,
I wasn't shocked.
He could take issue though. He could take issue right now with his own executive action. And would he be challenged in the courts? Potentially, depends on what they architect. But even still, it would move the needle in his favor because he'd be trying at least. But I don't know why they're playing it that way. So that aside, I don't know what to fear of Donald Trump. And I know that many people say, but Chris, that's enough. That you don't know, but you know that he's going to do something. That's enough. He has to lose. And I say, okay, then beat him. I'm worried about the lawsuits because it looks like from the outside or from the person who's not as invested in the minutia as everyone who covers it, it does look like they're out to get him. That a lot of these cases, a lot of the counts seem
we've
a
been
little
talking
weak.
for about half an hour. This is the moment I disagree with you the most.
Please, I love it.
I'm of the exact opposite view. I am tearing my hair out at Merrick Garland, wishing we had an AG who was out to get Donald Trump. Instead, we had an AG who slow-walked the entire damn thing, was way too cautious and small-c conservative. He should have put an Elizabeth Warren in there. He should have put a Rottweiler into DOJ Biden. Instead, he appoints this kind of centrist Republican, let's all be kumbaya friends type, who doesn't want to mention the Trump name, who wants to kind of avoid anything Trump-related, as we know from a lot of the Washington Post reporting. And now we're finding out that the Southern District of New York has screwed over the Manhattan case. Again, many questions for Garland. So no, again, it's projection. When I hear Trump and the Republicans say, Garland's out to get us, Garland, this is a campaign, a witch hunt. I'm like, if only. I'm the guy saying, if only they were out to get him. If only they were single-minded in their pursuit of this guy who tried to overturn our government. It wasn't just a riot, as you suggested. So no, I don't know what it looks like to certain swing voters, but to me, who's been following this for years, tearing my hair out, wondering why they haven't taken more action, why Liz Cheney did more to hold Donald Trump to account than the Democratic Attorney General. Yeah, I come from an exact opposite position. By the way, quick thing before I forget, it's been in my head for a bit. Do you believe in 2028, President Donald Trump just says, it's been great, see you later, guys, I'm off to play golf?
Maybe with a strong suggestion that the next one should be one of his kids.
Interesting. That's an interesting point. God help us all.
So let's pause here and take stock of what we just witnessed. Because this wasn't just a debate, it was a forecast. And like any good forecast, time has a way of revealing who actually read the storm correctly. Chris Cuomo didn't think Trump would win. He said Trump wasn't a Heritage Foundation guy, that the extremists wouldn't have real power. He predicted Trump would just coast through a second term, distracted by media feuds and Saturday Night Live sketches. He believed the institutions would hold, that the guardrails were strong enough. He was wrong about all of it. Mehdi Hasan, on the other hand, he called it down to the names. Kash Patel, Mike Davis, Heritage Foundation authoring the blueprint in real time, military deployments, ICE operating beyond legal boundaries, mass firings, government shutdowns weaponized as purges. Mehdi didn't just predict chaos, he predicted the asterisk architecture, asterisk of it. And here we are, 8 months into this administration, the Doge initiatives, gutting federal agencies, IC clashing with communities, the courts being the only fragile thread holding any semblance of rule of law, and even that's tested daily when an administration just ignores rulings it doesn't like. Let's talk about those institutions. Chris was so confident in the media rolled over. We've seen a few flickers of resistance, some pushback here and there, but largely capitulation. The corporations, writing checks and bending the knee. The Democrats, listen, they're not in power, so their options are limited. But let's be honest, most have gone quiet, hoping Trump implodes on his own while they stay out of the blast radius. That's not a strategy, that's survival mode. And survival mode doesn't stop authoritarianism. Here's the contradiction Mehdi exposed that Chris couldn't see. You don't need a grand vision to be dangerous. You don't need to be a strategist to be autocratic. You just need the instinct, the ego, and the right people around you willing to say yes, sir, when you give the order. Trump has all three now. And the people who said calm down back in May 2024, they weren't just wrong. They were dangerously, catastrophically wrong. Because every month we spend pretending this is normal, every week we spend hoping the old rules still apply, is a month where democracy loses ground it may never get back. So yeah, it's worth going back to this debate, not to gloat. Not to say, I told you so, but to remember that when someone shows you the blueprint for dismantling democracy, when they tell you exactly what they're going to do, and when experts who've studied authoritarians for decades sound the alarm, believe them the first time. Because by the time everyone else catches up, the damage is already done. Drop a comment. Tell me if you think Mehdi got it right. Tell me if you think Chris had a point we're missing. Tell me what you're seeing in your community, your state, your corner of this country right now. Because this conversation doesn't end here. It's just getting started. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't yet, and let's make sure we're the ones who see what's coming next before it's too late to do anything about it.